no one really moved that much that was on Floyd.
All right, let me bring in Chanley Painter now. Chanley, what did you...
Okay, I came in late, so I'm not real sure. It looked like they had another female prosecutor questioning. So we have a black man to question the black people. We have a female to question the females. I mean, how many prosecutors they got assigned to this George Floyd case? Because if they have 4 in the courtroom, I guarantee you they got another 4 or 6 that have been doing research, briefs, typing up things, collecting evidence. How much money is spent on this prosecution? Somebody ought to ask that question.
Tissue anytime you need one. So, I'm going to ask you some questions about that day, the day that all this happened. So, first things first, how did you come to be in the area? What were you doing that day?
Me and Alyssa were going to get snacks and an aux cord for the radio.
And where were you headed that day? Where did you want to go?
To Cup.
And when you say Cup, is that Cup Foods?
Yes.
All right. So you said you were with Alyssa. And how did you guys get there?
We drove there.
And who drove, you or Alyssa?
Alyssa.
And where were you in the car? Were you in the front passenger seat?
Yes.
Was it just the two of you together?
Yes.
So she was driving, you're in the passenger seat, you're headed to Cup Foods. What's the first thing you notice once you get into the area?
We hear George Floyd's voice yelling out for his mom.
Everybody heard him holler
breathe.
mom.
Okay. And did you notice...
Remember, if you're ever getting beat by the police, holler mom, because it makes for better testimony at the trial.
going on?
Yes.
And is that what you heard from the car?
Yes.
And what did you see as you were driving up?
We seen 3 officers on top of George Floyd.
And what did you do next? Did Alyssa park the car?
Yes.
And then what happened?
She pulled over and she asked if she should record it, and she didn't have a phone at the time, so she took my phone and recorded it.
And what were you doing when, did she get out of the car first?
Yes, she told me to stay in the car and leave the car on just in case anything happened. We didn't know what was going on.
So did you stay in the car for some period of time?
Yes.
So when you were in the car and Alyssa got out of the car, could you hear what was going on?
Yes, I could kind of hear what was going on.
All right.
I don't specifically remember exactly what was said, but I do remember hearing voices.
So tell the jury just what you remember noticing from where you were in the car. What were you hearing or seeing or observing?
I believe I heard George Floyd yelling still, saying he can't breathe. And then I heard witnesses that were there saying he was unresponsive. And that's when I started hearing voices getting louder, I got out of the car.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you there for just a second. You talked about George Floyd. You said you're here for George Floyd, and you're talking about seeing George Floyd. Did you know who he was at that time?
No.
After the fact, did you learn his name?
Yes.
Okay, so you now know him to be George Floyd.
Yes.
He used to be George Floyd.
When you heard, you said you heard voices getting louder. What prompted you to get out of the car? What made you think you should get out of the car?
I guess it was kind of just a gut feeling.
When you said you heard voices getting louder, was there something about the tone or what was said that...
It sounded serious.
Okay. And what made you think it was something serious?
Just the way like everyone sounded.
Okay. So what did you do?
I got out of the car and I walked up, and that's when I saw George Floyd unconscious and Derek on his neck.
Okay. So I'm gonna break that down a little bit. You said you saw George Floyd unconscious. What made you think that George Floyd was unconscious when you saw him?
He wasn't talking anymore, and when we pulled up, he was talking. His eyes were closed.
Any one of these witnesses could be you or me because we saw a video. And we could be testifying as if we saw a video. And it would not change anything that happened or that was in the video. That's why I think these witnesses are nothing but jury appeal, emotions. It's going to be on TV. Let's convince everybody in the court of emotional decisions that we'll get these young kids up here and manipulate them into saying he called mama and he wasn't breathing and he was asking for help.
A lot of pressure on his neck that wasn't needed.
And how could you tell, or what made you think from your point of view that Mr. Chauvin was putting more pressure on George Floyd's neck?
You could see it, like his foot movement.
So when you say digging, are you talking about the position of Mr. Chauvin's knee on Mr. Floyd's neck?
Yes.
Okay. So you come out to see Mr. Floyd, who looks unconscious to you. What else do you see and hear going on around you?
The witnesses telling him to check for a pulse.
And what happened at that point? Did you see anybody check for a pulse or do anything at that point?
No, not that I saw.
Okay. Did you see Mr. Chauvin or anybody else move or change or get up off Mr. Floyd?
No.
Did you, were you concerned at that point in time?
Yes.
Were you saying anything once you got into that group of people?
Yes, I asked, why are you guys still on top of him? He's not doing anything wrong. He was handcuffed.
And after you...
So now we're going to tell kids that they should be judging and questioning every police encounter because, you know, they obviously have experience and knowledge on what's right or wrong and police procedure. And even though they have no idea that George Floyd was just committing a felony and was fighting the cops for 15 minutes prior to this, that doesn't matter.
The tone in their voice was really, well, the Officer Tao's voice was really angry.
So was Officer Tao interacting with the people on the
Yes.
street at that point? I'm sorry. Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay. So you just have to wait until I'm done asking before you answer.
Sorry.
That's
She's answering because you went over her testimony whether she knows what the answer is.
Officer Tao appeared hostile. Can you just describe what he was doing that made you feel that way?
He pushed one of the witnesses there onto the sidewalk.
And did you know that person?
No.
Did you see anybody being, any of the, you said witnesses, but any of those bystanders, any of those people on the curb with you, were any of those people being violent or aggressive in any way?
No.
But you saw Mr.
They were
You always ask people of a mob if they thought the mob was violent because they're a good judge of it. They show up on a scene, they start squawking, they get caught up in the mob mentality, they start screaming things, they act emotional, and then you call all the mob in and say, do you think the mob was violent? See, the prosecution wants to negate the fact that the cops had a mob growing and people were yelling and that was distracting them from doing other things. And their safety was in jeopardy not only by fighting with George Floyd, who was under the influence of methamphetamine, fentanyl, and committing felonies, but now they had a mob that was angry at them. And the defense wants to negate that, or the prosecution wants to negate that.
Notice anything else about him, Mr. Chauvin, reaching for anything or touching his mace or anything like that?
Yes, he did grab his mace and started shaking it at us.
And how did you feel at that point?
Scared.
And why did you feel scared then?
Because I didn't know what was going to happen.
And were you scared of Mr. Chauvin or scared of Mr. Floyd or something else?
I was scared of Chauvin.
Okay. At that point that you saw Mr. Chauvin go for his mace, was there anybody in your group of witnesses or bystanders that were, again, being violent or attacking in any way?
No.
Okay.
They just had one witness. The guy had to be held back by spectators and said he wasn't angry, but he kept stepping off the curb and had to be pushed back on a curb. But now they're going to say nobody was being violent or threatening, right? And a 9-year-old kid or however old this kid is, yeah, that's going to be good testimony.
Can you just circle yourself on that screen? It's a touch screen. Use your finger. And do you see anyone else you recognize there?
Melissa.
See the hand holding him back?
And you circled Alyssa second. What is Alyssa doing there?
She's recording.
And is that your cell phone she has?
Yes.
And what were you doing at this point?
Don't any of these people have a job? I mean, how many people just get to wander around and stop and start videotaping things? I mean, this Cup Foods obviously doing good business.
Because the cop, I think, pushed him. I don't exactly remember, but I told him, like, don't, like, because I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't want anybody, like, fighting the cops or anything like that.
Okay.
Because I knew it'd escalate.
Did you know Donald Williams at that time?
No.
Did you learn his name?
I hope this defense asked her, are you scared of cops normally? Yes. Do you like cops? No. Do you think cops will help you? No. Has anybody in your family ever been arrested by the cops, or have you seen them arrested? Those would all be good questions to give a frame of mind on where this kid's coming from.
We can take that down. Did you see an ambulance arrive?
Yes.
And what was going on at that point in time?
The ambulance pulled up and Derek was still on his neck. The ambulance people had to signal him to get up.
And you just made a motion with your hands. When you say signal him to get up, did you see a paramedic make a motion to Mr. Chauvin that looked to you like a get up kind of motion?
Yes.
Okay. After the paramedics arrived, was that the first time that you saw Mr. Chauvin get up off Mr. Floyd?
Yes.
And how did Mr. Floyd look to you? What did his condition appear to be to you?
He looked kind of like purple, like he wasn't getting enough circulation.
A black man that looked purple? Well, I'd like to see that.
Okay. And I know this is tough to talk about, and I know it's hard, so take your time, but what did you think at that moment?
Well, I didn't know for sure if George Floyd was dead until after the fact, but I had a gut feeling.
So based on what you saw and how his body looked to you when they took him away, did he look dead to you at that point?
Yes.
And did you see anybody until the paramedics arrived, any of the officers attempt to render first aid or CPR or give any medical help before that?
No.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Sure.
I wasn't real impressed with her questioning, and she was going by the numbers, this and that. Oh, this must be the defense team. That's the first time I've seen all three of them talk. So some of the things that he's considering now is how much do I want to make a juvenile or a small child look like a bad person, even if I can catch her in a lie.
Defense attorney Eric.
Do I want to catch her in a lie? Do I want to make her look bad and then I look bad for making her look bad? And what can I get out of this? I wonder if he's going to question her.
Smart move by Eric Nelson. Sometimes no cross at all is the smartest thing you can do as a lawyer.
I agree. If the witness gave nothing and you really don't have nothing to win by re-examining them, why keep them on a stand? Let them go. Sometimes even if they hurt you, if you can't negate what they hurt your case, let them get out of there. Get them out in front of a jury. Don't ask them questions and make them look more like a victim, etc.
Your Honor, I apologize. We will need just a 10-minute break just to reorganize our witnesses here, but we'll need some time to move people around.
Let's take another break.
Alrighty. So it is 2:40 here in Texas, and that's the same time it is up there. So they're taking another break. Sometimes I get caught downstairs or I'm feeding the horses or doing something, and by the time I get back, I miss it. So sorry I'm not giving 100% coverage, but these witnesses are really irrelevant other than the emotional appeal. These poor young children were traumatized by this mean white man because he knelt on a guy that was committing felonies and under the influence and was fighting him. But they didn't know any of that. They just show up afterwards. I mean, it'd be kind of like showing up. A guy pulls a gun. Let's say the guy that walked into the school and shot up all those kids and went in there and killed innocent kids who weren't armed. And then the cops come in and shoot and kill him. And then you walk the kids out past the body, and then you get them on the stand and say, did you see the body of this poor man? Was he laying there bleeding? Yes. Did you feel bad for him because he was dead? Yes. Because they didn't know that he just shot and killed a bunch of innocent kids. I mean, this bringing in these children to me is more insulting to anybody with a brain. However, remember, we have 14 juries who were selected maybe because they didn't have a brain. But we'll see. We'll end it there.